-5 in parts of Scotland. Most towns and cities staying in double digits overnight. So it'll be a mild but fairly dull, dismal, damp start to the bank holiday weekend. Rain and drizzle in most areas, slowly edging away to the east, but southeast England, East Anglia, pretty soggy at first thing. Something a bit drier, trying to get into parts of Wales by this time, and Northern Ireland. But here too, further showers coming in. A fairly dull and dismal start across much of Scotland also. Again, this zone of rain will be heading its way away up across the Northern Isles, where it may linger into the afternoon in Shetland. But mostly it's pushing out into the North Sea. So for many of us, actually it'll get drier through the morning and slowly start to brighten up. And the afternoon may well bring some sunny spells across parts of central and eastern England, especially northeast Scotland. In these eastern areas, though, where it does brighten up, we could see some heavy showers breaking out. We could see some lively downpours in Northern Ireland too. They'll be very hit and miss. In the sunny spells, still feeling quite warm, quite humid as temperatures get up over 20 degrees Celsius. A fresher feel, though, by Sunday. The wind's picking up, a blustery, gusty day across northern areas, particularly so in western Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Temperatures won't be as high, but still largely fine across East Anglia and the southeast, where we should see highs over 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A8 at Junction 6 Newhouse has westbound restrictions due to a breakdown. On the M4 westbound, a vehicle fire between junctions 42 and 43 has closed a lane. Leicestershire's M1 southbound has 2 closed lanes between junctions 25 and 24. The M4 in South Gloucestershire is congested between junctions 18 and 20. In Kent, expect congestion on the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 3 and 2. And on the trains, Transport for Wales reports major disruption between Hereford and Craven Arms, while East Midlands Railway faces issues between Manchester-Oxford Road and Warrington Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky-roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Miriam Cates and you're watching GB News. Coming up in the next hour on Dewbs Co. Critics of the government's controversial Chagos Islands agreement have labelled it a £30 billion surrender, as confusion increases about the costs and the terms of the deal. Now, the Prime Minister insists that handing the territory to Mauritius is legally necessary, but opponents say this will undermine national and international security. And a leaked memo from Angela Rayner to the Chancellor of the Exchequer reveals the Housing Secretary's ideas for raising taxes. But is targeting middle-class voters the right way to increase government revenues, or are hard-pressed families already paying more than their fair share? Now, it's been revealed that in separate attacks just weeks before 3 people were killed by Valdo Calocane in Nottingham in 2023, 2 other men with paranoid schizophrenia, under the same care of the same NHS trust, stabbed other members of the public. We'll be asking if Britain is taking the wrong approach to psychiatric care. And after a torrid season and a loss to Tottenham in the Europa League final this week, Manchester United have announced 200 more redundancies at Old Trafford. But with some players on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, why should staff on low wages bear the brunt of the team's financial woes? And joining me tonight on my panel, we have political consultant Alex Dean and journalist Joe Phillips. But first of all, your latest headlines with Katie Bowen.
Miriam, thank you and good evening. It's 1 minute past 6, your latest stories from the GB newsroom. President Donald Trump says he's recommending imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the European Union being imported to the United States, starting on the 1st of June. Our discussions with Brussels are going nowhere, he said on a post on social media today. The announcement marks an escalation of Trump's trade war with the EU, which currently has a 10% tariff on all goods being brought into America. The EU Commission declined to comment, saying it would wait for a phone call between the EU trade chief and his US counterpart to take place later today. The president also threatened to impose a 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in America. Meanwhile, President Trump is calling for the UK to increase and incentivise North Sea oil drilling. Writing on Truth Social, he says our negotiated deal with the United Kingdom is working out well for all. I strongly recommend them, however, that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernised drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken. Well, that's as energy bills in the UK will fall by 7% in July, the first drop for a year, energy regulator Ofgem has announced. It means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill fall by £129. Households are being urged to shop around for cheaper energy deals despite prices falling from July. Ofgem says shopping around could lead to a £200 annual saving, but anyone currently on a fixed deal will not benefit from the fall this summer. The regulator's price cap sets a maximum that suppliers can charge for each unit of energy, affecting 21 million households in England, Scotland and Wales. Charities say cheaper bills are welcome, but many people will struggle to pay, with millions of customers collectively owing about £4 billion to suppliers. And Harvard is suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enrol international students. In the lawsuit filed in Boston, the university called the administration's actions a blatant violation of the law. It comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said they would be revoking Harvard's access to student visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices, allegations that the university has strongly denied. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Miriam.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome back to Dewbs Co with me, Miriam Cates. And joining me until 7 o'clock, I've got my expert panel, political consultant Alex Dean and journalist Joe Phillips. And of course, please do get your views and opinions in, gbnews.com/yoursay, and contribute to the debate. Now, just before we get on to our first story, Tottenham fans have taken to the streets of North London today as their victorious players can be seen on an open-top bus to celebrate the Europa League triumph over Manchester United on Wednesday. Now, if you want to watch the full parade live, you can scan the QR code that's about to appear on your screen, or you can head to GBN2 on YouTube. And we will be catching up with Charlie Peters, who is at the parade later on in the programme. Now, on to our first debate. After a dramatic late-night suspension of Labour's Chagos Islands deal, there was heartbreak for the Chagosians yesterday afternoon. The British overseas territory will now be surrendered to Mauritius at a reported cost of £100 million a year, almost £10 billion over the 99 years of the lease. Now, the government claims that international legal opinion made it impossible to hang on to this important overseas territory, but opponents of the deal claim that the security of the Diego Garcia military base is now at risk. So, panel, was this the right outcome? Alex, pretty much everybody apart from the Labour Party seems to be opposed to this, but can you just kind of summarise the main disagreements?
So, Keir Starmer and David Lammy, most notably, who said in the House of Commons that we had to do this because the international decision that we'd received meant that the UK was obliged to, which isn't true. Interestingly, not corrected. Told the House that the United Kingdom was obliged to do this. That's not the case. There was an advisory decision which said that Chagos Islands should go to Mauritius, not return. They were never Mauritian, but should go to Mauritius. And the interesting thing about the entire process, the international legal environment and the Labour Party's own internal debate, they didn't think to ask the Chagosians, who had been moved from their homeland by the United Kingdom, as it happens under Harold Wilson, so the Labour Party again. And at the last moment, which is what must have given them hope, they intervened in the High Court. And the government argued, successfully as it turned out, that their intervention was too late. And this was a timely matter in which the governments might not be able to sign if they didn't sign now, as if Keir Starmer's going to change his mind in a week or two to allow the debate about the Chagosians' right to return to their homeland, as if the Mauritians are going to change their mind about getting this enormous amount of money. So I thought that it was a very low thing for the government to do, even disregarding the broader principles. If you think the Chagos Islands should go to Mauritius for whatever reason, very hard to work out if you're the British Prime Minister, whose responsibilities to the UK, who's decided to spend a lot of money to give something away that seems an important asset rather than keeping it for nothing, which would seem the right thing to do. Even if you think that it's the right thing to do just generally, why not ask the Chagosians? And their intervention in the High Court was the most sad thing, because in the end they just got laughed off, as far as I can tell.
Joe, it is a puzzling situation, because normally when governments make unpopular decisions, you can kind of see the other side of the argument and think, well, there are trade-offs here, but it's very difficult to see this apart from the international court's opinion.
And let's just put it into context. I mean, this is a very expensive albatross that is now hanging around Keir Starmer's neck, but it predates him. I mean, it goes back to David Cameron, it goes back to Theresa May. I think it was during Theresa May's leadership, premiership, that ruling or that opinion, that advisory came out from the International Court. And I think the problem is, Alex has sort of alluded to it. First of all, the people who have come out of this worst are the Chagosians. Yeah. There aren't very many of them. We removed them. Yep. Back in the 60s, we've basically scattered them to the winds and we've ignored them. Mauritius has got no claim on Chagos. And this whole thing about Diego Garcia, well, you can dress up anything and say it's security. And I think there was perhaps a little bit of an element to push this through that, maybe it would please or appease Trump for half an hour or something like that. But it's the cost, Miriam. And I don't think anybody, of any political party, whether it was James Cleverly or David Lammy or David Cameron or Theresa May or Keir Starmer now or Jonathan Powell, his chief negotiator, could actually tell you clearly, well, the trade-off, as you say, is this for this.
We get nothing back.
No, and it's hugely expensive.
The British taxpayer just do this. So there's two points about what you rightly said, Joe. The first is that so my son's 16 months old. If he's lucky enough to have children, as I hope he will, and give me grandchildren, those grandchildren will be working through to near their retirement, still paying the cost of this money. That's if he has them late, as I did. But the second point, I suppose, which is an extraordinary thing for a Prime Minister to have done, the second point is, how do you reach this amount? Right? Exactly. It's a colossal amount for if they're not going to be asked to do that a great deal of activity, I don't understand the amount thing. Then separately from what you didn't say, it seems from the agreement that we are now going to tell Mauritius if we are going to use the military facilities on Diego Garcia.
Well,
what sort of help is that? What sort of benefit from military activity is that?
I think from what the government has been saying today, the explanation for this additional cost is that there's also some development money going to Mauritius, but in a way that rubs salt into the wound, because we hear that the other money is actually coming out of the defence budget. So the much-hyped increase to defence spending is actually not an increase at all once you take out the cost of this deal.
Well, and funnily enough, I never understood why the Trump White House approved of this deal. That was a nifty bit of footwork from Keir Starmer, whilst I still don't understand it. But that may incur the wrath of the Americans, who've been encouraging people to spend more on defence, and it looked like we were going to satisfy some of that claim. If it's instead to dole out development money to Mauritius, which is a kind of veil over not actually spending more on defence.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, the cost, who thought that up on the back of a fag packet somewhere? Because it's based on nothing.
Yeah.
It's not like they're losing income.
Should we say 100 million? No, let's say 101 over 99 years. Oh, that's a neat thing.
And you can review it any time. And the other thing, I think, is this, you know, this... Maybe it's because Keir Starmer's a lawyer, I don't know, and Theresa May always tried to do the right thing, I think, that, you know, this advisory that we should, the UK should, return it. We could have gone, thank you very much, we respect your opinion, and ignored it.
The thing about life, Miriam, Joe, is that quite often you get bad advice. When you get bad advice, you say to your friend who gave it in the best intentions, thanks very much.
Yeah, I'm still going to buy that house.
You know, we
on
know
a 99-year lease.
But in a way, the kind of how seriously you take international law, and in this case, not law but opinion. But you take my point. How seriously do we take international law? And in a way, that's the great political dividing line of our times. And it certainly is over things like, should we leave the ECHR? And how far should we adhere to judgments from the European Court? You know, these are similar. I accept that they are judgments and this is just an opinion. But, you know, do you believe in national sovereignty or are you internationalist? That's the kind of
I think, you know,
cutting edge.
There are certain things like the rule of law internationally and the rules regarding warfare, for instance, regarding humanitarian aid, humanitarian catastrophes. There are generally accepted, however, you know, faulty they may be, they are the least worst option of everybody trying to do it themselves in a different way. I mean, obviously, you know, I've sat on this programme a million times with Ben Habib and various other people banging on about leaving the ECHR and all the rest of it. You know, Boris Johnson, who showed no respect for international law or actually British law or anything else that required a rule or something. If you want to be part of the international community, you have to abide by the rules and you have to help make those rules. You can't have a sort of a smorgasbord, well, actually, I like that because that works for me, but I don't like that because people don't like it.
But when there's a clash between international law or opinion and national interests, should not national interests come first?
Certainly, if you're the Prime Minister of this country who's elected to defend and advance our national interests, and we have the misfortune of having someone who just doesn't believe that. He thinks his obligation is to that international legal community. But I'd differentiate between the authorities you were talking about. The European Court of Justice is part of an institution we voted to leave. Whether people wanted us to leave or not, it's part of the European Union. It's an institution of the EU. And having that as the arbiter between us and the EU is like saying, well, let's do a deal, and the judge on the deal will be your mum, right? So it doesn't make any sense. The ECHR is different. We signed up to that. It's a separate international organisation, but much of the remit and premise of it has been undermined over time by judges whose quality, I'm afraid, doesn't... There's the fiction that we pretend all judges are equal, and that's just not the case. It's not the same standard as the British judiciary. But ultimately, in the United Kingdom, you can vote for your Member of Parliament who, if they form a majority in the House, can then vote to pass legislation which those judges then interpret in British courts. You don't have the same power in the ECHR, and that's why there's a principled reason to leave, whether you happen to like some of their decisions or not. I think they're quite right quite often when they tell us what... I thought they were right about DNA retention from innocent people. I thought they were right on 28-day detention. But I still don't think they should have to be able to intervene.
I suppose the point would be, some of these international agreements are obviously very important, like you say, on how to conduct warfare in a humane as possible way. But do they actually change the behaviour of states that are rotten, the states that don't respect human rights?
You know, it's interesting, isn't it? The states that don't want to sign up to these things are pretty often the bad guys. You know, we saw, you see it at the UN on votes and things, and I know that's a slightly different organisation. But, you know, you've got rogue elements who won't sign up to this. It's very difficult in a very, very fast changing world with so many competing, tyrants, if you like, and interests.
Sure.
You know, there's not very much that holds us together. Most people would say that the UN is, sadly, a talking shop. A lot of people would say, you know, the World Health Organization is a talking shop. Many of these organisations become too big, but that doesn't take away from the fundamental principle that they were set up for countries to work together to try and do things for the common good, or at least minimise the worst outcomes of our own behaviour.
You can have good intentions, and the intention plainly was good behind, for example, the International Criminal Court. People talk about The Hague as if it's, again, with this talking about international law as if it's a new religion. But the Americans won't join because, apart from anything else, they are taking the cost of the world's policing, including and including still in Korea, which there's still no peace deal to this day, and the peace line is still there. But the Americans take on the cost of policing the world and run the risk, were they to sign up to such a court, of having their leaders unceremoniously hauled into it. This separate business about Israel being accused of things by a prosecutor who now has remarkable allegations against him too, just demonstrates that sometimes these organisations operate with this veil of kind of supremacy and they don't like anyone to challenge them. But as soon as the challenge comes, they can collapse quite quickly.
And I think sometimes it requires people to challenge them, but not in a belligerent way. It's actually to be much more loyally about it.
Yes.
And forensic and say, actually, we listen to what you say, but when you look at Clause 3, subsection 42B, that's not actually what
But there seems to be this view on the left, not saying everybody on the left, but there seems to be this view on the left that international opinion is somehow sacrosanct. And if a government or a minister was to go against international opinion, suddenly we'd be a black sheep, a pariah.
Well,
and that seems to be how Starmer's approached this.
I don't think that's true, Miriam. I think the trouble is, I think Boris Johnson trashed the UK's reputation so badly that I think many people who are more moderate, not necessarily hard left or anything else, actually wanted to try and regain some of the respect that people used to have.
But do people care? I mean, do ordinary people wake up in the morning and think, I wonder what Britain's value on the world stage is today?
Even if one were to concede everything you've said and hold the opinion of Boris Johnson and co that you do, don't you think it's the role of the media, which I'm afraid didn't do this, to say to our Prime Minister and our serving Foreign Secretary, why are you claiming Britain has to, when the advisory decision you've just received is just that, only advisory? They have proceeded on the premise that we are obliged to do something that we are not. And they should have been challenged on that time and time again in every media outlet in the land, and they weren't.
And that should have happened back in Theresa May's day when that first judgment came.
Of course, none of us on this panel were party to the negotiations that were happening either in the last government or in this one. But I know the deal didn't get done, right? And in the same way I acknowledge the deal that was done with the trade deal with India. Britain, we tried to do it as a Conservative Party. It's been achieved now. I would be hypocritical not to say it was good. If the Conservative Party had done this deal over the Chagos Islands, I would have said it was appalling.
Well, Cameron did stop it. I'm going to stop you there because we do have some very serious breaking news now. At least 8 people have been injured, 3 of them thought to be seriously, in a knife rampage in Germany. Police have declared a major incident after the attack at Hamburg Central Station at 6 p.m. local time. Now, 3 victims are in a critical condition, 3 others are seriously injured, and 6 people are slightly injured. There's currently a major police operation in Hamburg. Police have told us. We are investigating the background and will provide further information here shortly. And, of course, we will bring you any developments on that tragic story, what seems like another dreadful attack in Germany. They are becoming too common.
Extraordinary how often these things are happening now. And one chance, we're always told not to speculate, so who knows?
Yes, Absolutely, but we will keep you up to date. Now, moving on with the show, a leaked memo from Angela Rayner to the Chancellor Exchequer reveals the Housing Secretary's ideas for raising taxes. But is targeting middle-class voters the right way to increase government revenue? Or are hard-pressed families already paying more than their fair share? Well, all that and more after the break.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah,
as I say, now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Eve, very good morning. You commentate on this. This is your subject. What do you think? Why is this happening? Because we're sitting now. I'm at a stage now where all my kids are growing up. Whatever. I don't have to face this thing anymore. But I'm suddenly stopping and going, what? What am I paying this for? Why are we paying this? Why is this going to 750 schools and not all schools?
So this is a pilot run by the Department for Education to look at how this programme can work. It was a manifesto commitment from the Labour Party at the last election, and they're very keen to roll this out nationally, but they're doing this pilot for a short period until July to see how they can do this effectively to ensure that it meets the most children. So really, that's a kind of sensible way of rolling out what is quite a big programme.
It's important to do the pilots and study it and see who it helps and who it doesn't, and how expensive it could be if it's rolled out
getting the money
nationally.
to pay for this?
Well, exactly. What do they say about that, Eve? I mean, where are they going to get the money to pay for it?
So they've committed to 30 million towards it. To be honest, we're in a situation as a country where 1/4 of primary school teachers are saying that they regularly spend their own money on feeding kids. That cannot be right. We know that we've got a child poverty problem in this country, and I think it's a reasonably good use of taxpayers' money to be spending it on ensuring that children go to school and they are fed and able to learn.
Well, I just look and I think the basic primary parental responsibility is to look after your children, to feed your children. And I sit and scratch my head and say, of all the things that we can do as parents, all the things we can spend money on, are you telling me that you can't give your kid a bit of toast and a cup of tea in the morning?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Dewbs Co with me, Miriam Cates, and keeping me company until 7 o'clock, we've got political consultant Alex Dean and journalist Joe Phillips. Now, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has found herself at the centre of what's being reported as a Labour civil war this week after leaking, or we don't know if she leaked, but someone leaked a memo revealing that she's been pushing for middle-earning parents to lose their child benefit parents. Now, that move would have seen families whose top earner makes more than £50,000 a year no longer entitled to child benefit payments. This would mean many teachers, firefighters and police officers would lose access to the benefit, hardly high earners by traditional standards. Now, this also comes as a Times article suggests that Britons may now favour owning dogs over having children. So, Joe, child benefit used to be completely universal. It's been squeezed in value over the years, and then famously George Osborne took it away from families where one parent or both were earning in the high rate tax band.
Yeah, well, in the old days when it was family allowance, it was, used to pay for ladies who lunch. To go out, it was the Chardonnay fund, wasn't it? They just...
Well, for some people, for others, it was a vital lifeline.
Absolutely. The problem with all benefits are, if it's not universal, it's got to be means tested. tested, and, you know, there is an argument that a mean tested benefit is a mean benefit. But the reality is, you know, we can't afford this sort of universal benefit. I mean, the government is being so wrong-footed on benefits. They're caught in the storm about the two-child benefit cap, with many people, including child poverty campaign groups and many Labour MPs, saying you've got to scrap it. But, you know, you've also got people within number 10 saying, well, hang on a minute, why are we saying it's OK for people on benefits to have more than 2 children when other people are having to make decisions about not doing it, but they're not on benefits? It's very difficult. A bit like winter fuel, which we may or may not see a partial U-turn on. If you'd said, right, we're going to scrap universal winter fuel, but we're going to use that money for Sure Start, reinventing Sure Start, or if you did the same on child benefits, saying, we're taking it away from people earning over X amount, but we're going to use it for this, you get into a better conversation rather than this rather blanket, you know, let's just cut it off at some random figure.
Alex, even if we think that child benefits shouldn't be universal, that it should be means tested, the way that it's currently administered is deeply unfair, because if you were, and it's actually over 80,000 now, Jeremy Hunt changed the rules as Chancellor, but until a year ago it was 50,000. If one partner earns over 50,000, you lose the child benefit. But living next door to you could be 2 parents who both earn £49,000 each, and you qualify for full child benefit.
Well, that's part of the perversity of a system that doesn't think through the impacts of the rules that it imposes. But I do think that child benefit shouldn't be universal. I think it's absurd for a state to give money to multimillionaires to raise their children, and I think that once you've agreed that you should draw the line somewhere, I just don't think the state should be giving away money that it's taken off taxpayers to start with for a benefit like this. So once you concede that premise, then it's up for debate where you draw the line. But I dare say I'm not Angela Rayner's target audience. So the other thing I would say about this is I don't think the most important thing is where we put the child benefit limits. The most important thing is that Angela Rayner is on manoeuvres. This is Angela Rayner positioning herself as an alternate leader for the Labour Party alarmingly early in the Parliament. You don't normally get this. When someone secures an electoral mandate, a thumping victory as Keir Starmer obtained, and you and I were on the receiving end, so I well understand the extent to which this was a victory for Starmer, but he is already being, the Australians say, white-anted. You know, you're being undermined already in your Parliament by your own deputy. That is what this is about. It's not the most important thing here isn't what happens with child benefit, because it may well not even get that across, but you can see she's seeking already her own policy agenda.
Well, I think she is making it very clear, as I'm sure many of the very new Labour MPs who will have been battered and bruised by the shock announcement of winter fuel, which came out of absolutely nowhere. You know, the government will be remembered for that, like Margaret Thatcher, milk snatcher. You know, everything else pales into insignificance because that was such an absolutely catastrophic decision and so badly handled.
But that's why this is such a clever bit of leadership manoeuvring, because every Labour MP who complained was asked, what would you cut instead then?
Exactly.
Right? And now Angela Rayner is answering that.
She's got some ideas, I mean, just a final word on child benefits. I mean, of course, there is an argument for it not being universal, but the state pension is universal and it's an order of magnitude more expensive than child benefit. And it isn't true that, you know, people have paid into a pot. Sadly, all the money is spent at the time and it's just paid by current taxpayers. And actually, you know, it is costly to raise children, but people don't have children and raise children. There will be no taxpayers of the future. So it doesn't seem to me particularly unfair
But then you spend the money on other things, don't you? I mean, if you take it away as a direct benefit, which is basically paying people to have children, which seems a little bit bonkers. You know, it
seems absolutely essential when we have far too few children to pay taxes.
But, you know,
I would just rather we had lower taxes.
But what are the reasons that stop people having children? It's the cost of housing, it's the cost of childcare, it's the insecurity of work, it's the huge gap.
But taxes all pay into that, because because of the way our tax system works, if you are a couple with no children, combined income £50,000, you pay way less tax, like £4,000 or £5,000 a year less tax than a couple where one parent's earning, the other parent is looking after the children. and then they lose their child benefit. We have a serious penalty in this country that other countries don't have because they tax much more fairly.
That aspect of it is perverse, but the principle of drawing a line is one that, look, I just think we should have lower taxes per se.
Or increase the threshold. You know,
make it joint rather than an individual.
The trouble in this country is that both parties of government have been addicted to fiscal drag for decades. So that is to say, allowing inflation to minimise the value of your money, because over time you get dragged into tax brackets that don't put them up often enough. And we've been doing that as a very transparent parlour trick for like 2 decades.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, Joe, let's come back to what you're saying, because Angela Rayner is essentially suggesting tweaks can be made around the edge to try and raise revenues, which, whether you agree with her or not, she's perfectly entitled to make those suggestions. Isn't the problem that this government, and indeed the previous government, tied their own hands by saying we will not increase the basic rate of tax? A penny on income tax will be fairer and raise far more money than all these tweaks around the edge.
Absolutely. And, you know, you can tweak, and then you find, as we are looking at with the winter fuel, that you have to go back to it and introduce something that is going to be costly, complicated and confusing. Whereas actually, if you said, right, all the pensioners who are on the triple lock, who are getting a higher increase than all the public sector workers, they're probably now into a tax bracket. Or then, you know, outside the bracket where they can claim pension credit.
Yes.
So, you know, that doesn't work. And it does seem to me that, I mean, just to go back to the Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer's a fool because she connects with people. People like her. You know, she's got that authenticity. She's plain speaking. She knows where she comes from. And she has an understanding which many people who voted Labour and many people within the Labour Party will think, hang on, we voted Labour and they're cutting benefits, they're cutting foreign
disability
aid,
allowance,
they're cutting disability allowance, they're looking at this, that and the other. And OK, you know, things are beginning to look a little bit better in some areas. But if Angela is now, you know, the sort of lightning rod, if you like, for the unhappy Labour MPs, and then they're not just threatened by reform. You know, an awful lot of people are going to the Liberal Democrats and the Greens. It's not just reform. And, you know, if you're chasing Nigel Farage, you're on a hiding to nothing.
Alex, is there any world in which a simplified tax system might be a vote winner?
Well, yes. Other countries have experimented seriously with flat taxes, which I would welcome. The vast expansion of our tax code encourages the use of loopholes or practices that mean you seek to minimise what you do. And in many countries, you can a flatter tax will often result in larger take for the government. So it's not even as if it's a disincentive for government. But I will remind people who get prurient about this and say we should pay more tax, that if you write a cheque to HMRC, they will cash it. So if you think you should pay more money in tax, feel free.
You can make a voluntary contribution.
There's a pot that is paid into every year by some individuals, well-meaning, who want to pay more money to the country.
How sweet.
Amazing.
But the other thing is that we need to have a grown-up conversation. You know, if we want public services, they cost money. So, you know, if you want to have Scandinavian-style public services, great, you're going to have Scandinavian...
Sadly, it would be one of those things that requires a cross-party approach, and unfortunately that's unlikely. But nevertheless, we can talk up the idea. Well, don't go away, because it's been revealed that in separate attacks just weeks before 3 people were killed by Valdo Calacane in Nottingham in 2023, 2 other men with paranoid schizophrenia under the care of the same NHS trust stabbed other members of the public. So we'll be asking if Britain is taking the wrong approach to psychiatric care. Don't go away.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's the chance of a little bit of light rain in Sicily over the course of the weekend. Small chance of some showers in Mallorca as well. Plenty of sunshine for Greece. That should continue for the next few days. We've seen some wet weather across Croatia recently, but the showers here are also clearing. There's that thicker cloud and patchy rain that may affect Sicily. 1 or 2 showers for Mallorca and Menorca. Small chance of a shower or 2 in southern Spain as well. But generally, Spain and Portugal and the Canaries set fair with plenty of sunshine for the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. All change for the weekend. Wet weather's moving in just in time for the bank holiday, but the long weekend won't be a complete write-off. Yes, there'll be plenty of showers around, but there'll also be some fine weather to be had. It's all about the timing. Now, these weather fronts are timing things beautifully this evening, bringing rain in for Friday night across most areas. Parts of the east still dry right now, but the rain will creep its way eventually into eastern Scotland and eastern England. Nothing too heavy, but it's going to be a much milder night compared to last night when we got down to -5 tonight. Many towns and cities holding in double digits, some places staying in the teens. So it won't be cold first thing, but it will be pretty grey, drab, dank, drizzly first thing on Saturday morning. The main area of rain will be heading its way out into the North Sea. It's going to not reach Shetland until tomorrow morning, but once it arrives here, it may well linger. Elsewhere, the rain will be moving away from Northern Ireland, so something a bit brighter, at least for a time, but showers will move in here following behind this main zone of rain. Also looking a little drier across Wales and southwest England, a soggy start for East Anglia and the southeast. But again, that rain will be moving out into the North Sea, so generally through the day, it's going to get drier during the morning and eventually might even brighten up. Parts of northeast England, East Midlands, parts of East Wales may well see some decent spells of sunshine. It could just spark 1 or 2 heavy showers over East Anglia and the southeast, particularly northeast Scotland and Northern Ireland, but they'll be very hit and miss. Many places avoiding those, but more showers always come into western areas where it will be cooler. But in the east, in the sunshine, quite warm, quite humid, could get to 21, maybe even 22 Celsius. A fresher feel for Sunday, gusty day across northern areas, particularly in western Scotland. Really blustery here with lots of showers, but elsewhere, not too many showers. And much of the Midlands, eastern and southern England looking dry and fine. It'll be breezy, it will feel fresher, but temperatures closer to average with maybe getting up to 20 or 21.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Dewbs Co with me, Miriam Cates, and keeping me company until 7 o'clock, we've got political consultant Alex Dean and journalist Joe Phillips. Thank you for sticking with me. On to our next story. Should people suffering from potentially dangerous psychiatric conditions be incarcerated, even if they're yet to commit a crime? Well, it's been revealed that 2 men with paranoid schizophrenia stabbed members of the public in separate attacks just weeks before Valdo Calacane's killings in Nottingham in 2023. And all of those men were under the care of the same NHS trust. Yes, Joseph Esom Cooper and Junior Dietlin injured 6 men in stabbings in Nottinghamshire in 2023. Now, the mother of one of those attackers says that she spent years warning the police and mental health services of the risk posed by her son after frequently finding knives and axes hidden in his bedroom. But despite years of those warnings, her son was released from a secure hospital in 2022 before attacking a worshipper with a knife outside a church just a few months later. And only then was he sentenced to a hospital order. Now, his mother says she knew that sooner or later this would happen. Now, Alex, this is obviously a desperately tragic case, as were the murders of the 2 students and that other member of the public in 2023. And it does highlight that actually this approach of care in the community for people with serious psychiatric disorders can put the public at risk.
I think the fact that they were all under the same authority's aegis demonstrates that it's most likely an institutional failure within one part of the system rather than overall necessarily us getting this approach wrong. I think that the days of the asylum were were far too far in this country. We locked up people for life once you went in, very infrequently came out. The pendulum may have swung too far, and certainly in this incident, in this example, one authority was getting it very wrong in 3 different cases. But that doesn't mean overall that the efforts to rehabilitate people in the community is a bad one. And I would say, so I obviously no longer practice as a barrister, but when I had several clients who had been sectioned or people who were sectioned involved in a case, it's not a small thing to do. Once you've sectioned somebody, it's very different, which means you're sent to hospital whether you like it or not, and secure facilities whether you like it or not. It's an enormous curtailment of someone's life and liberty without having been convicted of anything, and it can be very open-ended. It can mean it can be very difficult to be unsectioned, I suppose.
But on the other hand, being murdered or stabbed by someone with serious psychiatric problems is also a serious infringement on your human rights.
Yes, but I think the point Alex makes underlines, the idea that somebody going to a psychiatric, secure unit, whether it's Broadmoor or another one, is some sort of soft option. People say, oh, this person should be in prison. They're not being punished. They're having a cushion. Well, they're not, actually. And I think the whole issue of psychiatric care is really difficult. And I think Alex is absolutely right. We do not want to go back to the days of the asylums where people were locked away for life, unmarried mothers, for instance, or people
But that's a
with
separate...
things.
I mean, unmarried mothers is a separate issue. I mean, obviously, that nobody thought they were mad. It was a wrong moral judgment, but it wasn't because they were mad. It was to hide them away from polite society, if you like.
Yeah, but, there are horrible, horrible cases of people who had not very much wrong with them that could have been treated nowadays with drugs or medication. The problem is, you say care in the community, there is no care in the community.
That is the point.
But that doesn't mean we should go locking loads of people up for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
So let's stop it, because I agree. For the rest of their lives, with no possibility of release, I agree. But if you really look into the figures on this, it's extraordinary. I mean, in the 1970s, the United Kingdom had 300 psychiatric beds per 100,000 population. So that doesn't mean 300 per 100,000 are incarcerated. It just means that's the capability. We now have fewer than 100, a third. And in that time, homelessness and street violence has rocketed up. This is the same in all Western countries, except for Japan, which hasn't reduced its number of psychiatric beds and has a fraction of the homelessness of the UK.
Well, and that is the other issue, and it is the impact on the community that people who are maybe not as ill as these paranoid
Yes, and we're not talking about people with anxiety and depression. We're talking about people with
who are
psychiatric
mentally
conditions.
Ill, who need help, they need medication, they need treatment. You ask any A&E medic, you ask any ambulance crew, they will see the same people week after week after week because they don't know who else to go to. The police don't want to deal with them. And you've got the incident that you just referenced of the mother of one of the other attackers warning, and we've heard it so often of people saying, I warned them, I knew she was going to do something. But if you've only got 100 beds...
Yes, exactly.
And if your default position is, well, let's see if they can manage the medication... it's a conversation, but you can't do these things unless you've got proper support, which means supporting people with taking medication, monitoring their behaviour, and in extreme cases where people are a danger either to themselves or others, they do have to be incarcerated.
Is there a happy medium, Alex, where we don't go back to the clear abuses that there were before the 60s and psychiatric care changed, but on the other hand, we do take a more precautionary approach to people who are at risk of violent offending?
Well, anyone who's a clear danger to themselves and others from a mental health condition is or should be under the purview of the Mental Health Act in the first place, and that's just us failing in the system if we don't do that. The more borderline cases that you're talking about and how we operate on a precautionary principle, as you were encouraging us to, I wouldn't want us to go down that route until we had actually sought to deliver care in the community in the first place. Because it's in no way... the fact that we've failed to deliver meaningful care in the community doesn't mean we should revert to a kind of, oh, well, then, the only thing to do to preserve society is to reopen the asylums. We should try actually having proper care in the community first, not least because for a good number of people, the isolation that you get once you are sectioned and in mental health conditions will exacerbate the condition you're in rather than help it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the alternative is we have over 200,000 people on the street. 60% of them have serious mental illness.
Yeah. Well, you know, who's cut? Who's cut? Who's cut? Successive governments.
Well, no, it was across the West. It was an ideological decision from the 60s to treat mental health completely differently.
Some things turn out to not work, but it's also, you know, if you're going to say care in the community is a different approach, which was a good idea, you've got to provide the resources to make that care in the community.
Well, we're going to have to go to a break now, but do stay with us because as Tottenham Hotspur celebrate their Europa League victory over Manchester United with an open-top bus parade throughout London, there's more woe for their opponents because on Wednesday night, they have announced that they are to make 200 staff redundant. But with some players on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, why should staff on low wages bear the brunt of the team's financial woes? Don't go anywhere.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Dewbs Co with me, Miriam Cates, and keeping me company in the tavern now. It is Friday night. Until 7 o'clock, I've got political consultant Alex Dean and journalist Joe Phillips. And Alex has been patiently waiting for his beer for the last almost hour. He finally has it. You can relax now.
I could have got two in.
Alex.
If you'd given me one.
You could have done. Well, you've got to do the serious stuff before you're allowed the drink. So moving on to football, of course, is very serious indeed.
Very good in the pub.
Absolutely. Well, Tottenham fans have taken to the streets of North London today as their victorious players can be seen on an open-top bus celebrating their Europa League triumph over Manchester United on Wednesday. Now, of course, this was great news for Tottenham, who have not had a very good season, but for their unsuccessful opponents, opponents in that Europa League final, also having a terrible season, Manchester United. Well, their defeat in Bilbao means that United will be without European football next season for only the second time since 1990, leaving a £100 million hole in the club's finances. Now, Man U reportedly announced their latest round of redundancies to individual staff just hours after losing that match. 200 more jobs are to go at Old Trafford. That comes after 250 staff were let go last year, with extreme cost-cutting becoming the new norm since the takeover by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But with some star players in the underachieving Man U squad still earning over £300,000 a week, is that staggering wealth in the world of football being distributed fairly? Joe, there's so much money in football. Obviously, it provides huge entertainment and enjoyment to billions, but nevertheless, if there's a case of inequality, surely it's football.
Wouldn't it be nice if the players all got together and stood up for the little guys, you know, whether it's the cleaners or the ball boys or the, you know, the kit room people or something? I mean, I know they can't because they've probably got all sorts of contracts and things, but it doesn't send out a very good message. And anyone who has had a season ticket, I used to have a season ticket for West Ham for many, many years, and it just became too expensive. And football clubs make an awful lot of money. But I want... Some do. But I want to, and I know Alex does as well, we want to do shout-outs for our local clubs because Whitstable Town, right down in the bottom, won the FA Vase, which is the non-league trophy. And the streets of Whitstable last weekend, in the wind and the cold, were lined with hundreds of people as they went through on a topless bus. No, it's not a topless bus. Alex just told me that.
It is not a topless bus. Open top bus. It's quite a different thing.
Yes. Sorry.
It's quite,
anyway, that's
quite a different kind of bus.
Yes.
I'm sure lots of football fans would like a top.
And I'm an Ipswich Town fan, and we have, of course, just gone down.
Yeah.
So we rose to fall, but the parachute payments will salve the wound. It is not my job to defend Manchester United. Man U play Spurs. I don't know who I want to lose more. But I will say... you know, if you want to succeed and win the things that put you into those next stages of competitions and get TV rights and so forth, you're probably going to need your star players. So you can make the business case that you've got to pay these absurd salaries. Because on those absurd salaries, you're competing with the whole world for the top talent in football. I just make that point.
No, and I think that is a fair point. But the message it sends out is that the people at the bottom don't count. And, you know, you could actually say to the players, right, we're taking 5% or 1% or something.
It does highlight, though, how much the money drives all the decisions, because, you know, you're talking about Ipswich, that's also our closest club.
You moved to Suffolk.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a fan just because I don't know enough about football, but, you know, there are clubs that have been in the Premiership forever. You know, they build up the fantastic support, they build up the contracts, they build up the grounds, but then you get clubs like Ipswich and Sheffield United, which used to be my local club, who, you know, struggle, they get into the Premiership, but then they don't have the money to maintain it.
Oh, hang on. Ipswich were promoted twice, right? So
if
you go up and go up again, it's always quite likely.
And then you get the parachute payment. And you know, the littler...
Can you explain that to me? Because I've never heard of it.
Well, you get money for coming down.
Oh, OK,
so,
like a payoff.
Soften the blow.
Yeah, so because obviously if you've
invested in your ground...
It's
and
still
you've
worth
invested in your ground, you've invested in your kit and all that. But, you know, it is a bit of a racket, but fans are willing to take.
I think what I find hard to swallow is, I don't know if you remember back, probably about 3 years ago now, 4 years ago even, Marcus Rashford, Man U player, I think, better check my football facts.
Yes.
He did a campaign on free school dinners.
Yes.
But what he was campaigning for was for the ordinary taxpayer to pay supermarket vouchers to families over the school holidays to pay for food. Now, OK, it's a fair enough campaign, but when you are worth millions and millions of pounds and you're demanding that the government spends taxpayers' money on something, I find that quite hard to swallow.
To be fair, Miriam, it was about COVID, and the COVID-free school meals didn't go on during the holidays.
Yeah.
His point was that they should, which I think was absolutely fair.
But he, instead of doing a whip round of his team, which he could have done, he demanded the taxpayer pay for it.
Well, he demanded that the government...
Which is the taxpayer.
Yes, was more fair and equal and recognised the fact that children, you know, who needed free school meals still needed meals during the school holidays.
But at £3 a meal, he could have paid for 100,000 children
you could say that about
a week.
You could say that about anybody who is wealthy. You could say that about anyone.
Yes, but most wealthy people don't campaign for taxpayers to pay millions of pounds more.
A lot of wealthy people do campaign, actually, for lots of changes in the law. And Marcus Rashford did a really good job. And actually, he came from real poverty.
Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't argue on the one hand that these elite footballers on all their money are out of touch, and then say on the other hand that a footballer who demonstrates his connection to the least well-off in society is someone who shouldn't have a voice about it. So.
No, I do think you should have.
No, I'm saying Miriam.
Oh, yeah.
You can't.
No, I'm saying that if you're super wealthy, put your money, and you're demanding that more money is spent on people who are less fortunate than you, put your money where your mouth is. Instead of asking ordinary taxpayers, many of whom don't have enough money themselves. We are going to have to leave it there. I'm so sorry. Let football chat continue in the Dewbs Tavern, but we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much to everybody at home for watching. Thank you both of my panel. Alex, you may finish your pint now. Let's see you tomorrow morning
I think
at
it's ready for another one.
Gone.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. All change for the weekend. Wet weather's moving in just in time for the bank holiday, but the long weekend won't be a complete write-off. Yes, there'll be plenty of showers around, but there'll also be some fine weather to be had. It's all about the timing. Now, these weather fronts are timing things beautifully this evening, bringing rain in for Friday night across most areas. Parts of the east still dry right now, but the rain will creep its way eventually into eastern Scotland and eastern England. Nothing too heavy, but it's going to be a much milder night compared to last night when we got down to -5 tonight. Many towns and cities holding in double digits, some places staying in the teens. So it won't be cold first thing, but it will be pretty grey, drab, dank, drizzly first thing on Saturday morning. The main area of rain will be heading its way out into the North Sea. It's going to not reach Shetland until tomorrow morning, but once it arrives here, it may well linger. Elsewhere, the rain will be moving away from Northern Ireland, so something a bit brighter, at least for a time, but showers will move in here following behind this main zone of rain. Also looking a little drier across Wales and southwest England, a soggy start for East Anglia and the southeast. But again, that rain will be moving out into the North Sea, so generally through the day, it's going to get drier during the morning and eventually might even brighten up. Parts of northeast England, East Midlands, parts of East Wales may well see some decent spells of sunshine. It could just spark one or two heavy showers over East Anglia and the southeast, particularly northeast Scotland and Northern Ireland, but they'll be very hit and miss. Many places avoiding those, but more showers always come into western areas where it will be cooler. But in the east, in the sunshine, quite warm, quite humid, could get to 21, maybe even 22 Celsius. A fresher feel for Sunday, gusty day across northern areas, particularly in western Scotland. Really blustery here with lots of showers, but elsewhere, not